It's the book club for kids.
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 The book club for kids. The book club for kids podcast.
Hi, I'm Kitty Felde. This week we talked to readers in Washington, D.C. about a novel whose heroine has a very pushy internal voice.
You should unwrap that Band-Aid and check to see if there's an infection.
That's our celebrity reader, NPR News host Kerri Miller. Our author John Green tells us writing Turtles All the Way Down helped him deal with his own demons.
Like, you're looking for the bottom turtle. There is no bottom turtle. It's turtles all the way down.
Our readers from Jefferson Academy admit that they are also haunted by obsessive thoughts.
Usually it's like school.
Disappointing your parents.
Once in a while I think about what it would be like if my loved ones died and like what if they died before me, how I would handle that.
This is the Book Club for Kids, the show where kids talk about books. We'll tell you how you can be on the show a little later on, but first, let's meet our readers.
Hello, my name is Lucy. My name is Mahader.
My name is Ruby. My name is Bee.
My name's Stella.
My name is Oya.
My name's Julia, and we're all 7th graders here at Jefferson Middle School in Washington, D.C.
Okay, the book is by John Green, Turtles All the Way Down. What is it about?
It's about a girl named Azza who struggles with anxiety and depression and OCD, and there's a billionaire who's gone missing, and there's a reward, and she and her friend want to look into the reward, and so they meet the boy named Davis, who is the son, and then they start their relationship together.
Describe our main character here, Asa.
She struggles with anxiety, and maybe she's in her head a lot. She uses the term where she feels like she's not the owner of her body. It's not just I, it's more like our and we.
Well, let's hear what that internal monologue sounds like. Our celebrity reader is NPR News host Kerri Miller.
You're watching TV with your mom. The show is about time-traveling crime solvers. And you remember a boy holding your hand, looking at your finger, and then a thought occurs to you. You should unwrap that Band-Aid and check to see if there's an infection. You don't actually want to do this. It's just an invasive. Everyone has them. But you can't shut yours up. Since you've had a reasonable amount of cognitive behavioral therapy, you tell yourself, I am not my thoughts, even though deep down you're not sure what exactly that makes you. Then you tell yourself to check a little X in the top corner of the thought to make it go away. And maybe it does for a moment. You're back in your house on the couch next to your mom, and then your brain says, well, but wait, what if your finger is infected? Why not just check? The cafeteria wasn't exactly the most sanitary place to reopen that wound, and then you were in the river. Now you're nervous because you've previously attended this exact rodeo on thousands of occasions, and also because you want to choose the thoughts that are called yours. The river was filthy, after all. Had you gotten some river water on your hand, it wouldn't take much. Time to unwrap the Band-Aid. You tell yourself that you were careful not to touch the water, but yourself replies, but what if you touched something that touched the water? And then you tell yourself that this wound is almost certainly not infected, but the distance you've created with the almost gets filled by the thought. You need to check for infection. Just check it so we can calm down. And then fine, okay, you excuse yourself to the bathroom and slip off the Band-Aid to discover that there isn't blood, but there might be a bit of moisture on the bandage pad. You hold the Band-Aid up to the yellow light in the bathroom, and that definitely looks like moisture. Could be sweat, of course, but also might be water from the river, or worse still, seropurulent drainage, a sure sign of infection. So you find the hand sanitizer in the medicine cabinet and squeeze some onto your fingertip, which burns like hell. And then you wash your hands thoroughly, singing your ABCs while you do to make sure you've scrubbed for the full 20 seconds, recommended by the Centers for Disease Control. And then you carefully dry your hands with a towel. And then you dig your thumbnail all the way into the crack in the callus until it starts bleeding, and then you squeeze the blood out for as long as it comes, and then you blot the wound dry with a tissue. You take a Band-Aid from inside your jeans pocket, where there is never a shortage of them, and you carefully reapply the bandage. You return to the couch to watch TV, and for a few or many minutes, you feel the shivering jolt of the tension easing, the relief of giving in to the lesser angels of your nature. And then 2 or 5 or 600 minutes pass before you start to wonder, wait, did I get all the pus out? Was there pus even, or was that only sweat? If it was pus, you might need to drain the wound again. The spiral tightens like that forever.
So her dad died when she was little, and so she just doesn't have a lot of support. So her mom tries to support her but doesn't really understand what's going on, and she feels alone most of the time.
Being stuck in her head a bunch of the time has caused her to push away Daisy some of the time, her best friend, and it kind of makes Daisy feel like she's kind of self-centered.
Well, let's talk about Daisy. She was my favorite character, I have to admit. Tell me about her.
So she writes Star Wars fan fiction, and she's very loud and she talks a lot, which works really well when Ozza just is sometimes really quiet. But Ozza doesn't sometimes notice how she's impacting Daisy and how Daisy lets out all of her emotions into her fan fiction that she writes, and she writes about a character that's based off of Ozza, and Ozza reads it, and then it gets them into sort of a fight, and it really kind of shows that how even though they do care a lot about each other, they can still fight and they can still get annoyed at each other. Daisy is not a one-dimensional character. She's more of a gray character.
And Daisy and Ozza are pretty much opposites that attract to each other. That's why they're like good friends.
Do you guys all like this book?
Yes.
Why?
It's just the way that Ozza deals with anxiety and her problems. It can relate to multiple people. I just like the way John Green, or aka the author, described multiple like mental illnesses in the story.
The author explained Aza's anxiety really well, probably, and it can either let people relate to that or like understand what some people might be going through.
I enjoyed the book. There were a couple parts I'm not that into romance, which I would have been okay without, but it was, overall, I really liked it. It did represent it in a kind of different way, because I feel like there are a lot of different types of anxiety and the different things, and it's sort of her own personal struggle with it, which is really interesting.
Let's talk about the title. Where the heck does that come from?
I don't remember exactly where it was, but they were talking about where the world came from, and someone brought up that it was like a plane on a turtle, and they were talking about how like, well, what's under the turtle, and they were just saying turtle and turtle and turtle, and someone said, well, it's turtles all the way down.
The term turtles all the way down relates a lot to what Ozza describes as an ever-tightening like spiral, and that's her thoughts and emotions, and she describes it as sort of like a nesting doll where it's sort of empty, and then she keeps trying to find the smaller and smaller one, but it's just not there. And the phrase is sort of showing how there's no end to it, like same with the turtles all the way down. It's just there, and so it's not like there's ever really going to be an end to it.
John Green seems to pile on these metaphors, one on top of the other, including a painting.
I think the one that you're referencing is in Davis's house, where it's the spiral basically put into a picture, and the spiral that she always feels, and then at the end, Davis ends up giving it to her, which is, and she says like she keeps it with her because it's sort of like a visual representation of what happens in her head.
How did you think the depiction of the boys in this book worked?
I really thought it was interesting to see the relationship between Davis's younger brother and Ozza, because Ozza was constantly, when she was texting Davis, was constantly checking in on how his little brother was doing, because she was like, she knew that he really missed his father, and he was going through a really rough time, and I think that was just really interesting to see that relationship progress.
Well, I think that she mostly had that relationship because she also related to his little brother for her dad dying when she was young. So I think that that's why she had that relationship. And it was good because she usually like pushes people away, or she's been shown to do that. So she was finally having or trying to relate to someone.
So death seems to be a kind of underlying theme in this book, with the scientists looking for the magic serum. And Asses seems to be totally focused on dying or not dying. Do you guys worry about dying?
No, not really.
So one of the things that I think caused her to worry so much about death was her father's death, because it also seems like it might have impacted her anxiety in some way, where that was one of the main things that she worries about because of it.
What keeps you up at night? What do you worry about?
A fair amount. Usually it's like school or dance, since I do that a lot. But it's not really anything in specific. It's like you worry about something and then it like leads to another thing, and then you find out an hour passed and you're still not asleep.
So it's spiraling on your own terms there.
Yeah, but it's not quite so like dramatic, where it's not, I can't get out of this. It's just like, oh, I'm thinking about this, it's leading to the next thing and then the next.
Not often, but once in a while I think about what it would be like if my loved ones died, and like what if they died before me, how I would handle that.
Disappointing your parents, sometimes that can also tie into school, but then also disappointing yourself, because if you don't do something that you really want to do at a specific time because you're afraid you're gonna disappoint or let someone down, in the end you just disappoint yourself, because you might look back and regret that you never did something like that. So sometimes I think, am I really doing what I want to and what I really love right now? Or am I putting other people's opinions before myself?
John Green is really famous for having a lot of little philosophic sayings that he sprinkles throughout his books. And one of them, one that stuck out, was, no one ever says goodbye unless they want to see you again. True or not true?
That's true. I feel like it's true. If you don't want to see somebody particularly, you don't usually, say anything, I guess, or acknowledge that you're leaving.
You ghost them, in other words?
Pretty much.
I think it's kind of like where a lot of times in romance novels or stuff like that, when we read and we see that one of the significant others usually don't just leave like without saying much to the person they're leaving, because maybe they feel like it's better that they're not together. So sometimes when you say goodbye, you're hoping that maybe one day we can reunite, because it's a goodbye, it's not just a bye.
Do we owe it to another person to actually say goodbye if we're planning on never seeing them again?
I think it depends on your relationship with the person, of course, because if you're never going to see them again, you might like really miss them and you want to say goodbye, but then if you don't want to say goodbye, then you don't have to.
Saying goodbye is sort of your way of saying, like, even though I'm going to go, but don't worry, I'm going to be back, or, something like that, even without actually saying it.
You guys have some questions for our writer, John Green?
What inspired you to write this book?
Initially I didn't want to write this book. I wanted to write a bunch of different books, and they kept not working and not working and not working. And I think one of the main reasons for that is that this was the only true story that I could tell right now, if that makes any sense. Like this was the only story that felt real to me in that time.
Did your own mental health problems have some sort of role in writing this book?
For a lot of the period of writing the book, I was pretty sick or emerging out of one of the worst periods of it that I've had.
Where did the title, Turtles All the Way Down, come from?
The story goes that this lecturer gives a long lecture about how the history of the Earth, and then at the end of it, this old woman raises her hand and says, "That's all very well and good, but the truth is that the Earth is a flat plane resting on the back of a giant tortoise." And the lecturer, thinking himself very smart, says, "Well, what is that turtle standing on?" And then the woman says, "Well, you don't understand, it's turtles all the way down." When I first heard the Turtles All the Way Down story, it almost felt like almost like a spiritual revelation oh my God, like it's true, obviously, that the world is, X billion of years old, and life evolved on it very slowly, and it became more complex. It crawled out of the oceans, whatever. But it is also true that the Earth is the stories we tell about it. Like the world is the stories that we tell, and so much of my thinking was trying to get to some bottom turtle, and that there is no bottom turtle. It doesn't really help, except that it helps give like form or expression to my thinking problem. Like now when I'm having that thinking problem, I can at least say to myself, hold up, Green. Like you're looking for the bottom turtle. There is no bottom turtle. It's turtles all the way down.
All right, now we've come to the hardest part of the discussion. I ask the hard question, which is, what is your favorite book and why?
My favorite book is not actually just one book, it's a series. It's either the Babysitter's Club books, which I used to read when I was in elementary school, or some of the titles include Smile or Sisters or Drama.
Raina Telgemeier's series, yeah, graphic novels, yeah. Now, why do you like those books?
It's just the way that the characters feel and everything, and like things they struggle with.
So my favorite book is called She Who Rides the Storm, and it's a YA fantasy novel that I really, really love, and one of my cousins recommended it to me, and I really, really liked it, and then it ended on a cliffhanger, and the next book isn't coming out for a couple more years. So that's always the downside. But in general, I just found it, like, difficult, and I don't find that in a lot of books, where it's just, like, it's actually hard to follow, but it's not impossible.
The plot, the characters, the writing, what makes it hard?
The plot, because it switches between 4 perspectives, which is always fun, but then it's not always like it changes points of time. It's absolutely my favorite book.
I'd say The Hobbit, because it's just like a wonderful story of a journey there and back again, and there are just like really fun characters that will continue in another series. But like the book itself just has like so many nice like poems or just like songs in it that are really fun to read, and like the plot and the characters and just like the theme is really like fun.
I'd say my favorite book is Echo. I guess I'm a really big fan of historical fiction. It basically goes through 3 different perspectives, and we see them because of a harmonica that gets passed through them, and it helps them through difficult times.
Why do you like historical fiction?
I guess I like it because I'm learning about it, about history. I mean, but I'm not just reading facts. It's really more of a story.
I really enjoyed the Percy Jackson series because it was just overall very interesting, and I also got to learn a bunch about Greek mythology. And another book that I really enjoyed was Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, because when I was in like kindergarten or something, I had this picture book version of it, and I read it every night, and it was just very interesting, and I just loved it so much.
It's called How Fuentes Fell in Love with the Universe. I love the way like the author describes the scenery. It makes me imagine how it would feel to be there, and when I do imagine it, it feels very beautiful. And then also, I like how the book touches on the topic of are you ready to disappoint people in order to follow what you really love? And it really makes me think, because one of the things I fear most is disappointment. And because of that, that book really influenced a lot of the way I think about things, and then also embracing who you are, even in the midst of society and things like that. I really like the book because of that.
Well, a book that I really enjoyed that I read recently was The Book Thief, and it's set during World War II, but the main character is living in Germany, so it's kind of like not the point of view you would expect. And she's had a really hard like upbringing, and the whole book she changes a lot, and there's a lot of character development in all of the characters. And I think it's really interesting to read about World War II from like the perspective you wouldn't expect. You get to like see how the war impacted people living in Germany as well.
Well, and it's a Book Club for Kids podcast episode too, and we'll have a link at our website, bookclubforkids.org. What about you, Kerri Miller? What's your favorite book?
My favorite book of all time is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. And here's why. I think all of us have a little Jane Eyre in us. She's had some tough times with her life. There were times when her family really wasn't there for her, and her schoolmates, who were kind of mean, could have been more understanding, weren't there for her. But it didn't knock Jane down. She makes some decisions in her life that, can seem kind of puzzling to the people around her. But she is strong and resilient and resourceful. Just the kind of woman I think we all would like to be. Just the kind of person I think we would all like to be. I think we all know someone like Jane Eyre. I think we are, parts of us, kind of like Jane Eyre. And that's why my favorite book is Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte.
We'll have a list of everybody's favorite book at our website, bookclubforkids.org. And if you have a favorite book, you can be on the Book Club for Kids podcast, too. If your school is in Washington, D.C. or Southern California, just have your teacher, parent, or librarian send us an email to kitty@bookclubforkids.org, and then we will send them all the information about how you can be on the show. And no matter where you live in the world, you can be on the show too. Just record yourself on your smartphone telling us your first name, the city where you live, the name of your favorite book, and why you love it, and then email the voice memo to us at kitty@bookclubforkids.org. We would love to hear from you, and send us a picture of yourself with your favorite book. Thanks this week to producer Chad Francis. Brandon Baker composed our theme with additional music from Andrew Walton. Emma Steinkellner designed our logo. Thanks to Mark Baser from The Interview Show with Mark Baser for sharing audio of John Green. And thanks to NPR's Kerri Miller, our celebrity reader. And of course, thanks to our readers this week, Ruby, Bee, Lucy, Stella, Jalea, Mahader, and Oyen, and their teacher, Brittany Locker, at Jefferson Academy. We have a free newsletter for teachers, parents, and librarians full of free tips about how to turn kids into lifelong readers. It comes out every other week, and you can sign up at the website, bookclubforkids.org. And we are nearing the end of Season 2 of the Fina Mendoza Mysteries. You can catch up on all the 17 previous episodes right now, so you will be ready for the grand finale next week. It's a great way to introduce civics to kids, and it's a great mystery story besides that. That's the Fina Mendoza Mysteries, wherever you listen to podcasts.